Have you ever had a moment that felt completely random, but later, it changed everything? Like one small choice, turning left instead of right, stopping for coffee 5 minutes late, led to something so big, so unbelievably life-altering, that you still wonder if the universe was playing matchmaker behind the scenes? Well, what if I told you? This story began with nothing more than a girl giving a stranger directions on a street corner, but by the end of it, that same stranger would become the one person she couldn't imagine her life without. Yeah, I know. It sounds like something out of a movie. But stay with me, because what you're about to hear is not just a love story. It's a story about fate, timing, trust, and a heart that found its home in the most unexpected way. And if you've ever believed in second chances, or even if you haven't, by the end of this video, you might just start. Now, I know why you clicked. Maybe you saw the title and thought, wait, how can someone fall in love with a total stranger just from asking for directions? Or maybe you're just curious. Or maybe, deep down, a part of you is holding out hope that magic still exists, that real, raw, heart-shaking love can still begin in the most ordinary places. You're not alone. And trust me, by the time we reach the end of this story, you'll have the answer to the question that brought you here. I won't hold back. But I need you to stay with me. Every second matters, every word pulls you closer, and nothing, absolutely nothing, about what you're about to hear is accidental. Let's talk for a second. Not just as creator and viewer, but as two people who know what it feels like to want more from life. You ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like the days blur, the weeks fly, and even when you're surrounded by people, something still feels missing? That quiet kind of loneliness, yeah, she felt it too. Her name was Mia. 28. Lived in Chicago. Worked a demanding job in marketing, had a solid circle of friends, an apartment that was Pinterest-worthy on the outside, but lonely on the inside. She smiled a lot, laughed even more, always showed up for others, but no one really knew how much she craved something deeper. Something real. Something that wasn't swiped left or right, wasn't filtered or forced. She wanted a love that felt like home, even when the world didn't. And then, there was him. Jason. 32. A tech entrepreneur, recently relocated to the city, trying to outrun the ghosts of a past he didn't talk about. Successful on paper. Quiet in person. The kind of man who kept his heart wrapped in layers of calm, control, and casual smiles. He wasn't looking for anything. At least, that's what he told himself. Love. That was for people who didn't already know how much it could hurt. But underneath that guarded exterior was a heart still bleeding from things he'd never said out loud. And on the day he met Mia, he wasn't just lost in the city. He was lost in life. And he didn't even know it, until she looked up, met his eyes, and everything shifted. It was just a moment. A quick glance. A little laugh. She had earbuds in, but noticed he looked confused. He hesitated, then asked, "Hey, do you know which way to the lakefront?" She pulled one earbud out, smiled like it was second nature, and pointed. "Yeah. Take that street 2 blocks down, then left. You'll see it. Can't miss it." Simple. Normal. Innocent. But that moment? That was the spark. The moment that would change everything. Because something about her voice made him pause. Something about the way she looked at him, really looked, made him linger. And when he walked away, he didn't just remember the directions. He remembered her. Now you might be wondering, what made that moment so different? We've all had quick exchanges with strangers. What made this one stick? What made it so unforgettable? That's the part you have to stay for. Because the truth is, Jason didn't plan on seeing her again. And Mia? She didn't even think twice after pointing him in the right direction. But fate. It had other plans. See, some stories move fast like a storm. Others sneak up slow, like a sunrise. And this one, it did both. Their worlds collided again just 3 days later, in a coffee shop neither of them usually went to. A rainy Tuesday. Jason was there because his meeting got cancelled. Mia. She just needed a quiet place to clear her head. And when he looked up from his laptop and saw her standing in line, her eyes scanning the drink menu, it hit him. Hard. That was her. The girl from the street. The one who smiled like sunshine. His heart actually skipped. And before he even knew what he was doing, he stood up and said, "Hey, I think you gave me directions a few days ago." She turned, surprised, blinked, and then smiled. To the lakefront, right? She said, recognizing him. Did you find it? He nodded. I did. Thanks to you. And that was the real beginning. But listen, this isn't just a story about coincidences. It's about the hidden threads that connect us, even when we don't realize it. It's about two people, both a little bruised by life, meeting at the exact moment they needed someone to see them. Really see them. Not for what they did. Not for what they posted. But for who they were underneath all of it. This story? It's about how love shows up when you stop looking. And how sometimes, the person you meant to find is the one who finds you first. I know you feel that pull to keep watching. Good. That's not by accident. Because what happens next will flip everything you thought you knew about love stories. There's more than just cute coffee shop chats and late-night walks in the rain. There's a twist. A secret. A past that Jason thought he left behind. But when it resurfaces, it threatens not just the bond they've built, but everything Mia thought was real. And here's where I leave you hanging. Because the next part of the story? It changes everything. The rain kept tapping gently against the coffee shop window, a steady rhythm that matched the unspoken tension hanging between them. Mia sat across from Jason now, her chai latte untouched, fingers lightly tracing the rim of her cup. There was something about the way he listened, like her words mattered, like her stories weren't just background noise in his day. And for Jason, every moment felt like it was slowing down just enough to catch its breath. He couldn't explain why her voice calmed the storm he usually carried in silence. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. With this effortless warmth, like she didn't need to impress him, like she wasn't trying to win anything. And that, in a world full of curated feeds and filtered lives, hit him harder than he expected. She didn't know it yet, but she had just pulled open a door inside him that had been locked for years. They kept talking. About nothing. About everything. Favorite books. Places they've traveled. The weirdness of adulthood. It felt like they'd known each other longer than the few short moments they actually had. Jason was careful with his words, but every now and then, a flash of something deeper would slip through. Like when he paused before answering a question about family or when his gaze lingered a little too long after she laughed. Mia noticed, but didn't push. She understood the dance of guarded hearts, the quiet steps people take when they're not sure if they're ready to be seen completely. And maybe that's what made their connection feel so rare. Because neither of them was pretending. There was no game, no rush. Just two people, sitting in the middle of a rainy Tuesday, choosing to be real. But outside the cozy cocoon of the coffee shop, reality waited, unforgiving, sharp-edged, and full of unfinished business. Jason had a past that refused to stay buried. It wasn't something he talked about, not even to his closest friend back in New York. There were legal papers he hadn't opened yet. A family business scandal quietly unraveling behind closed doors. And a woman, Sophia, whose name he hadn't said out loud in nearly a year. What happened between them was the reason he left everything behind and moved to Chicago under the radar, hoping to rebuild without the weight of his old life crushing him again. But secrets don't die just because you stop talking about them. They find ways to leak through the cracks, especially when the heart starts to hope again. Meanwhile, Mia was also navigating her own quiet chaos. On the surface, her life looked picture-perfect, career milestones, a supportive best friend named Lila who'd seen her through every messy breakup, and parents who proudly mentioned her job title in every holiday email. But there was something else. Something no one knew. Her brother Jake had disappeared 2 years ago. Just vanished. No goodbye, no trace. Police chalked it up to another adult who walked away from life, but Mia never believed that. She couldn't. There were too many strange details, too many unanswered questions. She hadn't told Jason about it yet. It felt too heavy too early. But lately, small things had started happening again. A phone call with no voice. A postcard from an unknown sender that simply said, "Still watching." And last week, she noticed someone following her while she walked home. The shadows of her life were stirring again, and though she tried to pretend otherwise, the fear was starting to creep in. Their worlds were colliding more than either of them realized. As their late-night texts turned into hour-long phone calls and casual meetups started to feel like something sacred, both Mia and Jason were caught in a quiet storm neither could name. He couldn't tell her that someone from his past was blackmailing him to return to New York, threatening to expose secrets that would destroy more than just reputations. And she couldn't tell him that she was still haunted by the idea that her brother hadn't just left, that maybe someone made him disappear. The trust building between them was real, but it sat on top of 2 stories filled with missing pieces, secrets, and lies wrapped in silence. And then came the night that changed everything. It was supposed to be simple. Dinner at a cozy Italian place near her apartment. A shared bottle of wine. Maybe a kiss, maybe not. But as Jason walked her home, hand brushing against hers in the most delicate way, a dark sedan crept up the opposite side of the street. Jason noticed it first. The way it slowed near the corner. The way the driver didn't make eye contact. His body tensed, instincts kicking in. Mia noticed his shift immediately. "Something wrong?" she asked. He shook his head, forcing a smile, but his pulse was racing. That car, he'd seen it before. Parked across from his building last week. He hadn't said anything then. Thought maybe it was paranoia. But now, no. This wasn't coincidence. Later that night, after she kissed him goodnight on her doorstep, Jason stood outside a while longer, watching the street. The car was gone. But the feeling in his chest remained. Something was coming. He could feel it. And what scared him most was that it might put Mia in danger. Back in her apartment, Mia found a letter slipped under her door. No return address. Just her name on the envelope. Inside was a grainy photo. Her and Jason, sitting in the coffee shop, smiling, talking. The note beneath it said, "You're getting too close." Her hands trembled. The blood drained from her face. She sat down slowly, mind spinning. Who sent this? Why now? Was it about Jake? Or was Jason somehow involved? And just like that, the ground beneath them began to shift. Because love, especially the kind that catches you off guard, can be the most beautiful thing in the world. But when it blooms in the middle of secrets and lies, it can also be the most dangerous. What happens when 2 broken pasts threaten a fragile new beginning? What if Jason isn't the only one being watched? And what if the person who vanished from Mia's life was never meant to be found? The answers are coming, but first, they'll have to face everything they were trying to escape. Stay with me. You don't want to miss what happens next. The city pulsed with an eerie stillness that night, as if it knew something was coming. Inside her apartment, Mia clutched the photograph like it might reveal more if she stared hard enough. Her reflection in the window was pale, her thoughts spiraling in every direction. The message on the note wasn't just creepy. It was specific. Someone had been watching them. Watching her. And Jason. Together. That detail made her stomach knot in a way she couldn't shake. The air felt colder than usual. It wasn't just a warning. It was a threat. And the part that chilled her the most wasn't even the photo. It was the fact that it had been slipped under her door. Not mailed. Not taped. Someone had been inside her building. Close enough to touch her space. Close enough to smell the coffee she made every morning or hear her humming to her Spotify playlist when she cooked dinner. She locked her door, double-checked the windows, and curled up on the couch, texting Jason that she wasn't feeling well and needed a night in. But the truth was, she just didn't know if she could trust him. Not yet. Not fully. Not after this. Meanwhile, Jason sat in his dark apartment, the television flickering quietly with a late-night news recap about rising urban surveillance and unexplained cyber breaches. Trending topics that suddenly felt way too personal. He was on edge. The same car had been outside again. Twice. And earlier that day, he received an email from an encrypted account containing only one line, "You were warned." Attached was an old press release from his company back in New York, with his face circled in red. The implication wasn't subtle. Someone was drawing him out. He hadn't told Mia the full story yet, and that decision was starting to look like a mistake. But how could he really? How do you tell someone you're falling for that the life you left behind is crawling its way back with claws? How do you explain that the scandal wasn't just corporate? It was personal. That people got hurt. That money went missing. That the reason he walked away from everything wasn't guilt, but protection. There was someone back in New York, Dominic, his former business partner and one-time best friend, who had twisted their company into something Jason barely recognized by the end. And Jason had made the mistake of trying to expose it. Now Dominic was playing a longer game. One that apparently involved showing up in his new life. But the next morning brought something neither of them expected. Mia's phone rang before sunrise. An unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. The voice was scrambled, digitally altered, but calm, methodical. "I see you found him. He's not who you think he is. But I think you already know that." Then a beep. A text arrived moments later, a screenshot. Jason, inside his apartment, looking out the window. Taken from across the street. She stared at it, frozen. The timestamp showed it was taken last night. While she sat in her own apartment wondering if she could trust him, someone else was already watching both of them. That's when everything shifted. This wasn't just about Jason. This wasn't just about her brother. This was bigger. And somehow, the two stories were colliding in real time. Desperate for clarity, she finally did what she'd avoided for too long. She reopened her brother Jake's last known files. Emails, photos, a digital notebook he'd synced with her years ago and then abandoned. Buried in a folder labeled Beacon was a string of coordinates, each tied to old city surveillance feeds and anonymous file transfers. The locations matched the addresses of public Wi-Fi networks. One of them, her stomach dropped, was the coffee shop where she and Jason first reconnected. Another was a building across from Jason's apartment. Jake had been tracking something. Or someone. And whatever he was on to, Jason was now part of it. She didn't want to believe it. But the coincidences were becoming patterns. Jason might be caught in it too. But was he a pawn? Or a player? Jason, on the other side of town, made a decision that morning. He couldn't keep lying. Not to her. He had to tell Mia the truth. Even if it meant losing her. He rehearsed what he'd say. He'd start with the real reason he left New York. How the whistleblower case fell apart. How Dominic's threats got personal. How he found evidence of a deeper ring involving illegal data sales and quietly backed out when the FBI dropped the case due to insufficient proof. He'd tell her how he changed his name slightly, moved with cash only for the first few months, and kept his head down. How she made him feel like it was finally safe to breathe again. He would tell her everything. But before he could, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video. The footage was grainy, security camera angle, time-stamped just 20 minutes ago. Mia, standing on a train platform, looking over her shoulder, clearly anxious. Behind her, a man stepped into frame. It was quick. Intentional. A bump. A handoff. Jason paused the frame. The man looked familiar. Too familiar. It was Jake. The same Jake from the photo Mia kept on her fridge. But how was that possible? He was supposed to be gone. Missing. Dead maybe. Jason's heart pounded. None of this made sense. Why would Jake be watching Mia? Why come back now? And why hadn't Mia told him she was being followed? Then his phone rang. Another unknown number. "Now you understand," the voice said. "If you want to keep her safe, walk away." Jason gripped the phone tighter, but the line had already gone dead. His reflection stared back at him from the dark screen. Haunted, confused, furious. He didn't know what was worse, the fact that someone was using Mia to manipulate him, or the fact that he might be pulling her deeper into something that had no exit. Across the city, Mia was running. Literally. Down the stairs of the train station, heart pounding, eyes scanning the crowd. She'd seen him. Jake. Just a flash of him. But it was him. She knew it. And yet when she chased him out of the tunnel and onto the street, he was gone. Like smoke. Like he had never been there. She called Lila, breathless, trying to make sense of it all. But even Lila sounded distant. Distracted. "Are you sure it wasn't just your mind playing tricks? You haven't slept much. Maybe you're..." But Mia cut her off. "He handed me something," she whispered. I felt it. Reaching into her coat pocket, her fingers closed around a tiny flash drive she hadn't noticed before. Cold. Metal. Real. Everything was unraveling fast. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something far more dangerous than either of them had ever imagined. Stay tuned, because the next revelation will shake everything they thought they knew. And the biggest twist? It's still waiting in the shadows. The rain was falling harder now, a relentless rhythm pounding the city like it too was trying to get answers. Jason stood outside Mia's apartment, soaked to the bone, the flash drive she had given him trembling in his hand. She had called him an hour ago, her voice tight with panic and disbelief, and whispered 3 words that changed everything. "I saw Jake." Her brother, who was supposed to be missing, maybe dead, was not only alive, but clearly part of something darker, something more calculated than they had ever imagined. Jason plugged the drive into his encrypted laptop, heart racing as a series of video files, audio clips, and classified documents poured onto the screen. What he saw wasn't just shocking. It was devastating. Jake had been undercover, deep inside the very corporate network Jason had once tried to expose, digging into a secret off-the-book surveillance program known as Echo Halo. It was a rogue operation that had gone viral in tech conspiracy circles, trending recently under keywords like deep web leak, real-life surveillance, and truth uncovered. But this wasn't fiction. This was real. The footage was undeniable. Jake, with a scar under his eye, sitting in a dim hotel room, speaking into a camera. If you're seeing this, I've either made it out or didn't make it at all. But Mia, if you find this, don't trust anyone. Not even Jason. Not yet. Jason stared at the screen, gutted. What did Jake mean? Was this filmed before they met? Was he still working a case? Or had he truly believed Jason was part of it? The next file revealed the answer. A recording of a private meeting. Dominic's voice, unmistakable, bragging about using the girl to get to the boy, and laughing about Jason's fall from grace. Jason wasn't the target. He was the bait. The entire thing had been orchestrated to keep Jake exposed, isolated, while the real players moved in the shadows. Mia was pacing her apartment, flashbacks of her brother's disappearance and the fear that gripped her during those long nights flooding her all over again. Seeing Jake, even for a second, had cracked something open. Something she had sealed off to survive. And now the evidence on the flash drive was the missing piece she never knew she needed. She called Jason again, her voice trembling but firm. We need to end this. Not run. Not hide. End it. They met at Lila's office building that night, where it all began, where Mia's brother had last pinged his location before going dark. But what they didn't expect was who they'd find waiting. Lila. She stood in the lobby like she belonged there, calm, poised, a little too quiet. You should have left it alone, Mia, she said, stepping forward. Jake warned you. I warned you. Jason moved instinctively in front of Mia, his instincts back on high alert, but Lila didn't flinch. You think this is about some corporate scandal? Some missing brother? No. It's about control. Predicting behavior. Shaping what people believe. Jake got too close to the servers. You were just a loose thread we forgot to cut. Mia's breath caught in her throat. Her best friend. Her sister in everything but blood. All this time, she was watching. Feeding her just enough comfort to keep her distracted. The betrayal hit harder than anything she'd ever known. Jason lunged forward as Lila reached into her coat, but it was too late. A small flashbang device rolled across the floor, blinding and disorienting them in seconds. When Mia came to, she was handcuffed to a chair in what looked like a basement data center. Jason was across from her, blood on his temple but conscious. Monitors lined the walls, each one displaying scenes from their lives. Past conversations, locations they'd visited, private moments they thought no one saw. Echo Halo isn't about security, Lila's voice came through a speaker. It's about behavior prediction. Social steering. And the two of you? You're anomalies. People who weren't supposed to find each other. But then came the twist neither of them saw coming. The screen flickered. Static. Then Jake's face filled the display. Nice try, Lila, he said, his voice steady. But I wrote the firewall. You didn't think I left my sister unprotected, did you? In seconds the power cut out. Doors unlatched. Lights flickered. Mia and Jason scrambled out of their restraints as Jake, alive and real, stepped through the door with a crew of agents behind him. Federal, legit, not part of any rogue operation. He had been deep undercover for months, playing dead to protect Mia and track the people manipulating the system from the inside. Lila had been under surveillance the whole time. They'd needed her to lead them to the core servers, and she had willingly, thinking she was in control. Outside, as the agents moved in and sealed off the building, Mia collapsed into her brother's arms, sobbing, shaking, finally able to breathe for the first time in years. Jason stood back, letting the moment happen, until Jake turned and pulled him into the hug too. You kept her safe, Jake said quietly. Even when you didn't know who to trust. Thank you. Weeks passed. Investigations launched. Whistleblowers came forward. The news exploded with headlines like real-life conspiracy exposed, Echo Halo shut down Spark's federal inquiries, and missing man found alive after surveillance operation busted. Mia and Jason kept a low profile but started a non-profit focused on digital ethics and privacy education. It wasn't just about what happened to them anymore. It was about making sure no one else had to live under invisible control. But just as everything seemed calm again, a letter arrived in Mia's mailbox. No return address. No signature. Just one sentence on the inside. You saw the echo. But there's still a shadow. She looked up, her eyes meeting Jason's, both of them realizing this story might be over. But something else was just beginning. And that, dear viewers, is how she gave him directions, and he gave her his heart. But what they found together changed far more than just their lives. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because the next story might just be hiding in plain sight.